welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a dilemma that is often far more painful and profound than the big dramatic breakups we see in movies. It's that quiet tragedy of leaving a relationship that isn't about, loud fights or betrayal.
Right.
We're diving into that moment, you realize the connection is, well, it's just out of place.
It's the highest form of relational complexity, and it's surprisingly common. I mean, you might be 3, 5, even 10 years into it.
Yeah.
You share respect, you have this history, maybe you even still care deeply for the person, but you reach this quiet, unavoidable recognition.
And what's that?
That staying here, it's not making you worse, but it is actively stopping you from living up to your own internal standard, from living true to yourself. The whole thing is agonizing because there's no clear villain to point to.
And this is really where Stoic philosophy gives us a kind of radical roadmap. The traditional mind, when faced with this, it asks, how do I leave without looking like the bad guy?
Or how do I minimize the conflict?
Yeah, exactly. But the Stoic, using our source material from Seneca, Epictetus, and Aurelius, they ask a much harder question, a character-defining question.
Which is,
how do I leave without betraying myself?
it's a self-oriented question, but, and this is key, it's not a selfish one. We're conditioned by, everything around us to believe that staying equals some noble sacrifice.
Maturity level.
Right, even if it completely hollows you out. And leaving, that's immediately flagged as, what? Weakness, selfishness. We really need to reset that entire moral framework to even start this conversation.
So our mission today is to dig into that source material, to unpack the Stoic principles that guide this disciplined, quiet kind of departure. We're looking for the framework for an honest, clean exit.
One that prioritizes inner order above how it looks on the outside.
Exactly.
Well, if we start with the philosophical foundation, Marcus Aurelius offered a clear counterpoint to this conventional thinking centuries ago. He was constantly reminding himself that external actions, so staying or leaving, they don't have any inherent moral value.
So it's not good or bad on its own.
Precisely. The only thing that determines its moral standing is the internal motive, the why. Why are you doing it?
That distinction is incredibly hard for people to swallow because it leads to, I think, the most difficult truth in these quiet breakups.
Which is?
That Stoics often don't leave because they ran out of feeling. They leave while still having feelings. So I have to ask the difficult question here. If I still respect and even, love the person, how is choosing my own path over our shared life not selfish? I mean, it feels like I'm just prioritizing my needs over theirs.
That is the essential contradiction we have to confront. And the Stoic argument, it addresses that pain by shifting the whole frame of reference.
How so?
Epictetus taught that human suffering is primarily caused not by the loss itself, but by the act of clinging to what is outside your control.
The relationship, the other person's happiness.
All of it, the collective outcome, these are all external. And when you label that futile clinging as your duty, you're just inviting unnecessary suffering and compromising your own integrity.
That reframes the entire problem. It means a relationship can be wonderful, the other person could be the kindest human on earth. But the relationship itself can still be out of place.
Yeah.
They might not be hurting you, but if that shared path is pulling you way off the course you need to be on for your own development, that's where the problem starts.
It's like a navigator whose compass points north, but the rudder is set for east because their passenger wants to go there. You're still navigating, sure, but you are completely out of alignment with your primary direction.
So from a Stoic view, leaving isn't a failure.
Not at all. It's a disciplined action. It's a choice you make when that external structure has begun to compromise your internal character. You're leaving to preserve your integrity, not to escape responsibility.
Okay, so if that logic is so clear, that preserving your inner self is the highest duty, why do people wait so long? The sources pointed to this startling psychological barrier.
Right.
People stay in these misaligned relationships for, about 11 months on average, waiting for a justifiable reason to leave.
They're waiting for a mistake, a fight, some clear transgression, something to make it easier.
Why?
Because we fear the social label more than the actual loneliness. We're not afraid of leaving the person, we're afraid of being branded as a certain type of person.
Selfish, unreliable, ungrateful.
Exactly. These are labels imposed by society's expectations of commitment, not the internal reality of the connection. We mistake the social contract for a personal contract with ourselves.
And we have to talk about the societal mechanism here, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Society moralizes staying because it needs stability.
It's convenient.
Right. Stable couples, stable families. They're convenient for the collective narrative. Leaving creates instability, and the group narrative, well, it punishes that. It's a way to ensure compliance.
Precisely. And the individual cost, that slow, corrosive eating away of your personal integrity, is often just ignored for the sake of collective stability. Aurelius, dealing with the duties of an entire empire, still insisted that duty only keeps its value if it doesn't destroy your inner character. And we see so many people engaged in this illusion of self-sacrifice. They stay to keep the peace, sacrificing their authentic thoughts, their needs, their dreams. They think they're showing love, but a Stoic would immediately call this a loss of inner order, a profound betrayal of the self.
This is that critical paradox of goodness. We're afraid of leaving because we think it's the selfish act. But staying when you've internally checked out, that is a much more subtle and maybe more dangerous form of selfishness.
You're using them as a shield, a comfortable shield against your own need for change. You're keeping them in a relationship where you aren't even fully present. Seneca warned about that. No kindness is built on prolonged pretense.
So the punchline for you, the listener, is this.
People don't really fear losing the shared life. They fear losing their moral image. Stoicism teaches us to prioritize living in alignment with that internal compass over, keeping up a convenient, externally defined image. And sometimes that compass demands a very difficult departure.
Let's focus now on the existential impact. What happens when that internal ending comes long before the external one? When you're 9 months into the silence and detachment.
Right.
You're physically there, but psychologically you've already left. What does that silent decay do to a person?
Well, Marcus Aurelius observed that the soul doesn't collapse from some big tragedy. It doesn't happen in one catastrophic event. It collapses from the repeated small compromises with what you know is wrong.
So in this period, you stop arguing.
You stop explaining your needs. You just stop believing that saying anything will create any meaningful change. The source material notes that you move beyond intense pain and you become just empty enough to continue functioning.
That is a terrifying phrase.
It is. You're a perfectly capable employee, friend, partner, but the vibrancy, the core of you is just gone.
The term the sources use for this state, and it's perfectly aligned with Stoic thought, is Lutstruck, or off-axis, misaligned.
A profound internal dissonance, the gap between what you live on the outside and what you feel on the inside. And that requires exhausting psychological maintenance. It's a fatigue that doesn't come from fighting, but from constantly playing a role while being mentally checked out.
And that fatigue, it doesn't just drain the relationship, does it? It bleeds into everything.
It impacts your whole personal capacity. Staying too long trains you to mistake enduring for morality. This self-abandonment makes you afraid of risks in other parts of your life.
Like a career change or a big move?
Any of it. Epictetus warned that we fear being alone with our unorganized inner life more than we fear losing the other person. Staying just delays the inevitable work of facing yourself.
So here's the final warning we pulled from the sources on this point. Staying in a relationship that has internally ended doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you more loving or patient.
No, it only makes you a quieter, smaller version of yourself. You've traded your agency for comfort.
So we've established the why, the necessity of leaving when that alignment is lost. Now, how do we actually do it? How do you execute a disciplined departure? This final section is crucial because the goal is not to make leaving pleasant.
Which is often impossible.
Right. It's about maintaining inner order during what is, by its nature, a chaotic time.
Absolutely. And the strategy focuses on those 7 days after the conversation. The source material reminds us that the hardest part is resisting that automatic urge to go back to what's familiar.
The comfort, the routine.
Even when it's destructive, yes.
Okay, strategy 1. Speak once, speak enough, do not repeat. A Stoic understands that a mature decision doesn't need to be justified in endless debates.
Right. Don't open endless rounds of conversation after the decision is already made inside you.
Just state the truth honestly, without blame. I am leaving because this no longer aligns with my core life path. Marcus Aurelius taught that consistency here is the highest form of respect for your own decision.
Strategy 2. Refuse to hold a moral trial. This is where the external pressure gets immense. You have to resist that temptation to paint the story in a way that makes you look righter to friends or family.
Because relying on their judgment for validation is...
It's a form of self-betrayal, as Seneca warned. You're outsourcing your own conviction. A Stoic exit is quiet. No villain, no victim. The story's simple, it was good, and now it is over because it no longer fits.
Strategy 3. Set immediate and clear boundaries. So many people leave formally, but stay psychologically tangled, checking texts, social media, just in case.
Epictetus is crystal clear on this. You cannot heal while you are still touching the thing that hurt you. Boundaries are not a punishment.
They're conditions for your own recovery.
Exactly. Necessary conditions for your own inner order to return. And they show you respect the decision you just made.
Okay, strategy 4. Accept the necessary loneliness. Don't rush to fill that immediate void.
No distractions, no rebound relationships, no constant noise. You need silence and space to resort your inner world. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that being alone isn't terrifying if you don't abandon yourself. That silence is the workshop.
Where you rebuild.
And recalibrate your compass. You have to stay with the silence. It's productive.
And the final one, strategy 5. Do not rewrite history. A relationship can be right for a time and then just not be right anymore.
And that's okay.
Acknowledging the good parts, the love, the joy.
Yeah.
That's a mature act. It stops your memory from becoming a weapon of self-punishment later on.
Right. You can't let good memories negate a disciplined decision that's necessary for your present. They were good. They fulfilled their purpose for that time. The goal of this departure ultimately isn't to leave nicely.
It's to leave cleanly and conclusively.
Yes. And not conclusive with the other person's story, but conclusive with your own internal hesitation. That final, clear resolve is the only thing in your control.
So what does this disciplined departure get you? The source material calls it stepping into the true promised land of Stoicism. And it's not, immediate happiness.
No, not at all. It's the return of inner order, that vital, non-negotiable alignment between what you think, what you say, and what you do.
And that alignment is freedom.
It is. Epictetus defines freedom not as getting what you want, but as preventing things outside your control, like another person's reaction or society's judgment, from dictating your behavior. You regain complete control over how you move forward.
And what you gain is this vital, painful knowledge. You learn that the pain of loss is fundamentally different from the pain of self-betrayal. The Stoic chooses the loss that hurts on the outside, but which doesn't cause that internal disintegration.
It is the ultimate sign of maturity. You stop needing to justify your departure to other people because you've stopped needing to be understood by them. You're satisfied with just being true to yourself.
So, to you, the person listening right now, if a relationship demands that you stay based on fear or guilt or just maintaining a comfortable moral image, is that really a foundation you should anchor the rest of your life on?
The Stoic doesn't leave a difficult situation to live an easier life. They leave a misaligned life to live a more truthful and disciplined one. And sometimes maintaining that integrity, that sense of inner order, is the final, most honest act of love and respect you can give to both of you.